You've got a passion for the outdoors, a desire to feel the warm sun on your face, the sound of your fly line whipping through the air, the pop of the water as the fish inhales the fly you just found in the floorboard of your truck. You need to feel the cool waters on your feet, the crisp north breeze of a November morning, the sound of a turkey gobble, the December rut, the chills of an elk bugle in September. It's the longing passion to chase your obsession. This is what we share. This is what we preach. Welcome to Honey Hole Hangout.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Honey Hole Hangout. Today we have the Zacks, as per usual. Myself, I'm Landon, and we have Chris Fleury, a.k.a. Blacklisted Fishing on Instagram. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, y'all.
So,
I'm supposed to do it too.
Chris, why don't you walk us through the journey of you coming on the show?
Shoot, I think I started listening to you guys like right at the beginning, or pretty close.
Oh, so you're an OG.
Yeah, I'm pretty much. I think I remember seeing your stuff pop up on Texas Freshwater Fly Fishing page on Facebook page.
Probably. That's probably true.
Yeah. You're talking about like one of your honey holes drying up and whatnot at the time. And then, I don't know, I just started kind of chatting with you guys over the episodes.
Oh, that's how you found out about this?
That wasn't an old episode. I mean, that was like one of the first couple.
Well, that was a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the one where I relocated like 7 gar? Is that what you're
yes. So little puddle and you were relocating and then it like tried to fall down. So.
I forgot about that. So that is crazy. I forgot that happened. So I went out to my honey hole and it was dry except for a puddle that was like 3 feet wide by 3 feet wide. And in this puddle, still alive, were 7 like small like spotted gar. So I loaded them up in my net and then relocated them to like some water, which was just crazy because like an hour later and they may not have been alive. I don't know.
I've heard, you probably didn't have to do that. I've heard that during droughts, fish actually retreat into the aquifer. That's what I've heard.
Is that right?
Yeah. Not done any looking into that.
Not that anybody's looked into it.
I know of somebody who's very knowledgeable on that topic, and he's told me a few things.
Well, considering they would have had to have gone about through maybe 30, 40 feet of mud to get down to the aquifer, I think me moving them was probably the best case scenario for what I encountered.
Hey, man, there were springs all over.
Hey, you never know. There's ones by me that are pouring out constantly.
That's crazy that's how you found out about the podcast. That was like way early.
Yeah.
Way early YouTube video.
That was like one of the first YouTube videos I think that we did.
Yeah, that may have been like one of the first YouTube videos we did.
Didn't you do one with
and it only has like 100 videos. Yeah, me and Adair relocated some carp as well in a different video.
Yeah, we did.
On the San Antonio River that were like, it wasn't as dire as the gar. There was actually still water there, but they were definitely like isolated puddles, so we wanted to get them into the connected section of the river.
Yeah.
Well, that was like last year when the San Gabriel over by me dried up. I mean, 100%. You're talking 50-foot wide river in certain parts, and I walked up on a puddle of probably 20, 30 carp just dying.
Jeez.
And I had to there's nothing I could do because it was quarter mile, half a mile in every direction, in both directions of just no water. So,
are there like any deep pools or anything near you that held water?
That was the only one that was keeping them.
Damn.
Oh, dang.
And the same thing happened within the next 2 months. So I've got 2.5 acres in the back like 80 feet of creek front, but it's like a seasonal creek, and so 3 years ago it flooded up, and I've got video of carp just swimming upriver and gar swimming upriver when it was flooded up, and it was dry when we moved in. And for that next year, I had 12, 14 inch bass in there. There's a couple 2-3 foot gar, tons of carp, some big catfish, and I fished them for a while. And then when that dried up, the hole that's right behind my house, and I think I'd posted about it, just kept shrinking. And we had to go out of town for a weekend, and I came back, and as we're driving across the bridge, I look over, and there's like 40 vultures just feasting.
Ooh.
So how's it look now? How's the Gabriel now?
So the Gabe, and I was talking to Gold about this the other day, he said it's running better than he's probably seen in about 5 years. And it's running better than I've ever seen it since I moved up here, which is about 3 years ago. So it's running amazing. Problem is that the fish are fighting from essentially 2 years in a row. The river dried up completely in spots.
Yeah.
So,
are you finding fish in these sections that were dry?
So we're finding them because I'm only about 10 minutes from Tejas Park, off of the San Gabriel, Georgetown Lake. So when we get, we've gotten this last, month or 2 months where we've just finally gotten rain after rain after rain, and it's now consistently flowing high enough, the fish are pushing. Holes that were full of fish are now empty, and when you start really putting in some river miles going upstream, you're finding fish where it was completely bone dry last year.
That's good.
So they'll push really hard. It's just they had to push a long ways this last year. I mean, we were walking stretches of river where, a mile you saw minnows, and that was it. And it wasn't like they were hiding under undercuts. This is limestone bottom, limestone walls, and maybe a couple slabs in the middle, and that's about it. And there's just no fish. Where in places where there used to be 30, 40 fish.
Man, that's crazy. Well, I know we did real recovery a couple weekends ago, where we had fish. Some sections that we had in the fall were completely dry that we couldn't fish, and we had guys catching fish this spring in those sections that were completely dry. So I think it'll recover. I think the rivers actually recover faster than we think that they do.
Well, I will say that. So in the area where we stay for real recovery, that was completely dry. There was one puddle there, and we were walking and finding carp skeletons out there, and that was in September, right?
Yeah.
And then we were out there a couple of weeks ago, and the numbers, it's like nothing ever happened. The fish are same size as they were back then, and there might be even more of them. I mean, I was pretty surprised to see that.
If you go up and down the rivers and find the sections that are holding fish, even during the dry years, they're packed full of fish.
Oh, yeah.
So even when it was completely dry, we had, there's areas with springs that are, super, super full of fish. And, of course, they're packed, so you can't catch. It's really hard to catch them because you spook one and the whole thing's gone. Mm-hmm. But it's just there's other rivers, in the hill country that have been devastated with floods in the past couple of years. And, you hear people it's just gone. Nothing's in the river. And then the last year you go and do a float and you'll have banner days now on some of these rivers.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Zach, what are you tying?
This is a version of Jim Gray's Damsel in Deceit. And the reason I say it's a version is because the hook that he normally ties on is a TMCO 200R, I believe it is. And I don't trust myself with those hooks, so I'm using my typical Bonio carp. The TMCO,
why don't you trust yourselves with those hooks?
Because they're a thin wire, curved nymph hook.
Oh, and you reef on them and bend them, don't you?
What's that?
When you reef on them, you bend them when you're tying.
I don't know. I've never tried. But but yeah, so I'm using what I've got on hand and what I know that I can handle a fish with. I'm sure the original hook that he uses is great. I mean, he catches carp like nobody else in the state, but I don't trust myself. So got to do what you can. What are you tying, Landon?
Nothing. What's the material list?
Material list is So I'm using the chickaboo off the bottom of a hen cape, but chickaboo for the tail, and then a vinyl D-rib body with daddy long legs out the sides, and then a hackle of. I'm using American hen. I'm not sure exactly what he uses, and then a dubbing head with some beach hen.
Yeah.
Actually, soon, sometime in the next few months, GRTU will have a video of him tying this fly, so you can see the real way to do it.
Nice.
That was from your tying night at Orvis, where they recorded. That was one of the ones that he did.
That was
what other flies did he do at that tying night?
I bet you can guess.
Lantelope?
Yeah. He did the lantelope, this one, and then if I remember correctly, he did a craft for bait fish.
Okay.
I think.
Nice.
But yeah, so I've been meaning to tie this one. I just hadn't done it yet.
Hey, Zach, why don't you give us a quick soccer update? Because we didn't get one last week. So anything interesting going on in soccer coaching?
Oh, yeah. So last week we lost 0-3. It was not great. It was a bit defeating. But, yeah.
Was it a player issue or a coach issue?
It was
or a little bit of both.
We can't win if we don't score. You know what I mean? Like, like that's just what it comes down to, you know. So,
way to say it was the players.
Well, I mean, you know, there are some things we hadn't worked on that we probably should have before the game. Like 2 of their goals came from around midfield. They had one player with like a really strong leg. Yeah. And he just launched it, and my goalie wasn't prepared, and he was cheating out of the goal a little bit, and it went right over his head, and he didn't get a good angle on it. And so we just hadn't worked on those, you know, and so it literally just, he was like, I don't know. So we have worked on those since. And then the other thing, though, is just like, I had one winger who would go up the field, like that's like the side of the field. He would go up the field, and nobody, especially my forwards who are supposed to keep up with him or actually be even ahead of him, were there. They would be like at midfield while he was getting stopped in the box, and he'd have no help. He'd have nobody to pass to. And so we worked on that a lot this week, the week before too. And so then on this past Thursday, about 5 days ago, we played another game. And we scored one early goal, and we went to the half. And then to start the second half, we tackled them, slid tackled in our box, and they drew a penalty, and so they got a penalty kick, and they scored on that to tie it 1-1. 30 seconds left in the game. They foul us outside the box, about halfway between the box and midfield. And literally, I'm keeping track of the time. I'm like, everybody, get to the box, get inside, wait. And then our strongest player was able to kick it and get it right into the box, and we just nudged it in. And we literally scored with 3 seconds left of the game, beating the other guys 2-1, and everyone went crazy. So it was.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah, they needed that win after losing last week 0-3. So it was pretty good. But the only thing I'll say is the coach from when we lost, like before we even played them, he came up to me and he was like, oh yeah, so I remember exactly what happened last year. You guys did this, and that. Like no other coach had like even remembered or talked about what happened last year, but like he was like crossing the T's and dotting the I's of a play-by-play of what happened last year. So he had circled that date on his calendar.
So if you have someone that's left-footed, get them on left defense, because that's what I was in high school soccer, and it's always awesome because you can clear it while it's on the line and not have to worry about trying to step over it.
Yeah.
Or like
you can just clear it up.
You can just cross the field with it.
Yeah. Because I have a couple of reserve guys, and they're always like, "Which side to go to?" I'm like, "Whichever side you feel comfortable." But I'm gonna look at that.
I loved it. I played 2 years of JV, and then junior year, I shattered my big toe on a big a dirt crack. It was in the ground. I went to go. The ball had stopped, and I went and just kicked it as hard as I could, and it went down into the crack, and I got compression fracture. And it was like the second practice of junior year, so I was out. I played 1 game the entire year.
Oh man, dude, that's tough.
You retired?
Retired.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, early retirement.
I can't say I would have gotten varsity, but I sure as hell didn't have a chance after that.
Yeah. Dude, that's tough, man. But
Well, yeah, soccer sounds exciting then, Zach.
It is fun. We have 2 more games, and then we have the tournament. Right now, we're sitting middle of our division, so we'll probably play in the spring, or the silver tournament. Um, but if we can
What if
win,
you win out?
if we win out, we'll probably get gold because if we win out, that also means we have to beat the team that's at the top of our zone right now, and they're undefeated. And so if we can beat them, that'd be pretty well. And we have the talent. We actually probably could beat them. Um, but we shouldn't have lost that team. We lost 0-3 either. It was just, one of those things. And then our last game of the season is against the worst team in our division, who has not won yet. And so that, either they're scratching for a win or it should be easy.
You were saying how the other coach came up and was telling you what you did last year or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing that came to mind was the 2 coaches and the water boy.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I just pictured you in a dress and heels on the phone.
Dude, it's been so long since I've seen the water boy.
What?
I
That should
know.
be burnt into your brain, though, man. Come
I
on.
watched it a lot too.
What's the lady's name who plays the mom in Waterboy?
Oh,
He
Jesus.
just calls her mama, right?
No.
No,
Like what's her actual real
Oh.
like?
Oh my gosh! Now that you ask,
Well, anyway, I saw an interview with her how she got the script. They asked her to play the mom, and she got the script, and she thought it was garbage and threw it in the trash.
What?
And her daughter or something was a big Adam Sandler fan, found it in the trash and read through the script and was like, this is Adam Sandler, you have to do this movie. And that's what convinced her to actually play the role.
yeah, because she's a heavy hitter. I mean, she's been in great top notch movies.
Yeah.
I saw a meme online where it was going to be an Elon Musk biopic or whatever, and she was going to play him. They were saying she needs to play.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So I have a video from our buddy Jim. Since I guess he heard that we can play videos now on the podcast for our video viewers, so he wanted us to watch his video and react to it.
Around the bow slowly. Watch your trolling motor there.
Hey, that's Jim.
Oh.
Jim, that looks like a spinning rod. Is that Jim? It's the same hat.
That is Jim, right? It's got him.
It is Jim. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's
If only.
That's definitely Jim's hat.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Watch your trolling motor there.
Nice, Jim. That's awesome.
Right.
Nice tarpon jump.
Oh yeah.
Something about Jim. I don't know if he was messing with me or if he was serious, but did you guys notice his sunglasses at the retreat a couple weeks ago?
No.
They're intentionally fogged up so they don't have a shine to them, the outer lens.
Oh man.
They look. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
And you think he went to that much effort just to mess with you? He went there, was rubbing chapstick on his lens?
Yeah. How was he messing with you? I don't understand what the joke is.
Maybe they were actually fogged up. Because I made a comment, I was like, "Damn, Jim, your glasses are really fogged up." He was like, "No, they're supposed to be that way."
Oh, okay, I get it. I didn't know if you saw him several times, and each time he's just run to the bathroom with a some chapstick and just smear it on there, and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Zach will really enjoy this one." Yeah.
No.
That's still on my bucket list fish. I haven't even jumped a tarpon yet.
Oh yeah.
No, Zach, have you casted
Throw
at
him to
one?
him.
Have you?
Yeah.
One of our Texas tarpon, or have you specifically gone somewhere?
No. I've at the end of the Port A jetties, I've cast to them, seen them rolling and cast, and then obviously nothing. You guys would have heard the story 1,000 times by now if I hooked up. But
That's true. That makes sense.
can't all be
Chris,
Chris Skinner.
Chris, are you actively chasing tarpon? You said you hadn't jumped one. Is that
Not-
are you working on it?
It's never been it's gonna be weird. It's never been the top of my bucket list fish. It's gonna be amazing. It's a beautiful fish. They finally tell watching them jump is amazing, but it's just never been a fish that I'm actively out on the coast chasing. Now I went down in this last year, and I drove down there, and I saw like a 3-footer roll off the jetty and cast it at it a couple times, but that was all I saw. And then I was at the end of the jetty, and guys were catching kings, just huge kings left and right. And so I was set on catching one of those. That was kind of all I was concentrating on for hours, and never got one, so I kind of just went down my way. And then that was for the Fly Trap's 2nd anniversary party. It was that same day. And so I drove down the night before, wanted to fish in the morning, and then head back up in time to make the party. So that's when I was kind of stopping halfway, trying to see if we could see him running on the surf and whatnot, and cast. And that's where I caught that little palometa. I thought it was a pompano, but then when I was looking more on it, I was like, well, the fins aren't right. And I asked a couple people, and they said it was, and not ultra rare, but you don't catch them very often, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to catch one.
And probably even more uncommon on a fly.
Yeah, I mean, because I wasn't casting at fish. I was just kind of blind casting into the bars. Yeah. Now, there were some huge bull reds running the bars that day. And apparently that night, guys were seeing 40 inchers on the jetty all night, working the jetty. But I was casting at a couple. I guess I was just casting the wrong flies, So I didn't hook up on any that day.
Yeah.
So why are tarpon not like one of your bucket list fish? I'm curious.
I think it's because it's everybody's bucket list fish. It's it's always been the end goal. Like, people are just going for tarpon. And that's great. I want to catch one, but it's not ever been my end-all, be-all saltwater fish. It is for some people. That permit, I'd like to catch a permit. That's great. But, if I'm going to Florida, I'm going to go probably to catch a tarpon, catch a permit, if I'm in the area. But I want to go for Jim hates it because I bring it up because he's gone for years and haven't caught one of the clown knifefish, the monster ones that are right there on there's a couple lakes down on the east coast of Florida that perfect for clown knifefish to get 10-pound range, 8 pounds, 10 pounds or something. These huge, crazy, invasive, I guess. At this point they're invasive, not naturalized yet, but they're just crazy looking fish.
What are your bucket list fish?
Big Dolly Varden.
Ooh,
yeah, okay.
I'm about that.
Big bull trout, which is when I was in Washington, not this year, but last year, I went to the Skagit and the Sauk River, which run into the Skagit, trying to chase some bull trout, but fish regs are weird. We get spoiled here where it's 365, 24/7 for fishing, and while it was there for 3 days, 5 hours of the last day was the only time I could fish. The rivers are completely closed down. So not just for steelheading, they shut down the rivers completely. There's no fishing allowed. So it kind of limited my time and options. I caught a coastal cutthroat 30 minutes before I had to go, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But then to rub it in, a guy up about 100 yards upriver pulled out a bull trout that he's holding it up like this. So that sort of salt in the wound did it. But golden dorado, because they're just, it's a monster fish, jumps like crazy, hits like a freight train, and it's in a damn trout river.
Yeah.
Crystal clear water trout rivers. And if you like fishing for browns and you like fishing for peacocks or fishing for anything that hits hard as hell, you get that all in one fish. I've never caught one, never even gone down there, but it's definitely almost on the very top of my bucket list.
Yeah.
And then same river, there's the big pacu there. So
yeah, Dorado's high on my list too.
And
Dorado's very high. Dorado and peacock bass, and not. Don't get me wrong. I would love to go to Florida and catch a peacock bass, but actual
like a real one.
Yeah, like a real one, native peacock bass.
A big bull mahi mahi is really high on my list.
Really.
So I caught my first on fly last year. I guess they're called chicken dorado.
Mm-hmm.
A little, like 12-inch, just little dink. I went with a friend. He's got an offshore boat. We went 35 miles off of Galveston for red snapper fishing. And then while we were there, I had brought my 8-weight and my 12-weight. I had it on the boat, and when I got tired of just reeling up a fish every 2 seconds from 100 feet, which beats the hell out of you, suddenly there was like an 8-foot hammerhead circling the boat. And so I took off the 12-weight and just started casting at it, and it didn't want what I had. But then this remora like branched off from it and went underneath the boat, and I cast it out, and it just hammered the fly. And that little fish fought as hard. Oh, I didn't think they would hit as aggressively as they did, but it was like a freight train. It missed the first set and then just came right back for it. So then I was fishing for blue runners the whole time because they're just everywhere. And I've never had to retrieve as fast as I had to get one of them to bite. Like, they will not even look at the fly unless you are stripping as fast as humanly possible. But when they hit the 8-weight and they tore off with it, like they're putting me in backing. So
that's something I want to do real bad is like go offshore with a fly rod.
Yeah.
And I've never done it, so I'd be like happy just catching literally anything.
Well, yeah,
anything offshore would be fun.
That's what happened. We were on our way back. We were just heading back, and he almost ran into a big log that was floating in the middle. And I kind of told him, I was like, hey, turn around, let's go check it. And we cast a couple times and didn't see anything underneath it. And he casted just a big spoon, like a big jigging spoon past it, probably 30, 40 feet past it, and started reeling in really fast. And then you see a school of like 100 of those little chicken dorado just come blasting up at it. And so then I'm just like, it's on, and I'm casting like crazy. And they're kind of the same way. You just have to strip as fast as you can to get them to chase it. They don't want it unless it's going as fast as possible because they know if it's not real.
They want it very alive.
Yeah. And so I finally hooked one, and then we hooked probably 10 of them and brought them home because I didn't even know there's no limit in the Gulf. There's no size limit and there's no bag limit for Dorado.
Really?
For Mahi.
I did not know that.
No,
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we caught as many as we wanted to at that time and then took off because there were no big ones. And we trolled for kings for a little bit and had a 6-foot shark take the bait, and then the waves started getting even a little too sketchy for, I think he has a 28-foot, 30-foot boat.
Dang.
So that was my Dorado. That was my Mahi.
That's awesome.
Man, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it does.
And I hear the way to do the offshore charters too is because they're pretty expensive, but just get a group of dudes, and then you split the cost, and it's more reasonable to do it that way.
If I was looking for that, that's when I'd call Fowler and ask him down there. He knows those guys that, he went out with them a couple times, and he knows the guys that run those offshore. I just happen to have a friend that had the big boat that he goes offshore, and he actually just got his captain's license this last year, so he's going to start doing offshore guiding trips.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
35 some odd miles. I think his range is 35 miles.
Okay.
He goes on his boat.
Yeah. That's cool though.
So is he going to do conventional guided trips or fly,
he's
or both?
He's just a conventional guy. He's not a fly guy. He's
just a conventional guy. He's
just a conventional.
He's low. He's just here.
No gatekeeping there. No elitism.
Hey man, offshore just spin casting or just dropping a rig, that's still fun, man.
No, it's still fun. I did it for the first 4 hours, but you drop down 100 feet, you hook up instantly, and have to reel that fish back up as fast as you can so the sharks and dolphins don't wreck it. And then you do that for a couple hours, and for 3 days after that, I feel like I got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
I don't work. Obviously, I don't work out. So
it's just reeling up fish. That's it. That's all the workout we need.
Yeah.
Guys.
Yeah. So once I got tired of that, I started casting at the top. Stuff that was circling around the boat.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, if you could make that like a daily workout where you could just consistently be reeling in fish every day for an hour, I'd be okay with that. But there's no consistency there. You're just gonna go out there and like there's gonna be some days you're just not gonna be reeling at all.
No.
It's just not gonna be a workout.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, if you're dropping down that deep, it's going to be a workout whether there's a fish on it or not.
Oh, just bring
Yeah,
it back
and
It's
up.
going to be more
remember,
of a stamina training.
Yeah, that's true.
You're dropping like full giant lead, like just 16 ounce or larger like lead weights all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a workout all in itself.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Yep. All right, Chris. So let's talk before we get into like our conversation we're going to have about fish species. Tell us about your like steelhead. You've been doing some steelhead trips, so kind of fill us in on your adventures there. So I've been steelheading one time, and I've caught one fish. So I'm definitely not the right person to ask. You've been kind of DIYing it a little bit and spending more time.
I don't go on the trips really with money to just dump in a guide, which if I had it I would, but so I work for a hotel, and every year they have a little engineers conference for the head maintenance guys, the hotel, and they send us all up to Redmond, Washington at one of the hotels there, and we just have like a 2-day little thing where we all talk, get to know each other, kind of share some info. But I found out where it was, and the first trip up I booked 2 days after the meetings on the return flight, because they pay for the plane ticket there and back, and I can book the 2 days whenever I want. So I don't have to pay. I can stay longer than the meeting. I don't have to pay anything more.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to go fish somewhere, and the Skagit River had been talked about a whole bunch, and I didn't have time. I didn't have time that trip to drive all the way to the OP, the Olympic Peninsula, northwest of it. So I just drove upstate and tried on the coast a little bit. Just got skunked. The tide was crazy that day. And then so I went to the Sauk River, which runs into the Skagit River. And I camped out there on this campground that looks like Jurassic Park. It's the crazy. You're up in northwest Washington. It is kind of the craziest thing, especially when you're used to, rose hedge and thorns here and Weesatch and stuff. And it was beautiful. And I woke up, and that next day was I had 5-6 hours to fish. That was it, with time to get back to the airport, turn in the truck, and get on the airplane. So I just kind of hit the Sauk hard, didn't catch anything, ran over to the Skagit River.
Now, are you two-handed fishing?
No, so this time I've just got my 8-weight and I'm swinging sink tip, and I was swinging some big streamers. So then I hooked up a coastal cutthroat, which was kind of cool, but I was going for bull trout. That's really what I wanted, and I heard this area had a lot of bull trout and a lot of Dolly Varden for the rivers. So I was fishing there, and time was winding down. Caught the one, and then like I said, to rub salt in the wounds. There's a guy right upriver, and he just hauls out this monster bull trout. So I looked at my clock and said, it's time to go. And
How big do you think?
I don't even know. I was up the road, and he was yelling what it was, but
did he know that you were wanting to go after
bull trout?
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bummed. Head back, and I hit traffic on the way back, and I was literally in the security line, and they were calling out last for boarding on my plane flight.
Oh my gosh.
So that was kind of that trip, and I didn't really catch anything. And then, so later last year, my cousin got married in Pleasant Grove, California. So it's kind of northeast of Sacramento a little bit. And we went there a couple days early, kind of scheduled a couple days early. My wife and her sister came with her so that they could do stuff outside the wedding. So they went to the Redwood Park and did that. And so I went up to the Feather River because I had heard it was a great river to fish at, and found some awesome stuff that morning and just cast and cast and cast. And then there is like 30 and 40 pound salmon just rolling in front of me everywhere. just these monsters, and they don't want anything, and it was illegal to catch them. So if you hook them, you got to immediately either break them off or take the hook out and not take them out of the water.
What kind of salmon?
What's kings? What's the other name for them?
Atlantic?
No.
No.
I'm brain farting at the moment.
Sockeye?
No.
Chinook.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of Chinooks on the run. That was the spawning run while I was there. So then I heard go down to the dam, which is there where everyone fishes for them. So I drive down to the dam, and there's 30 people lined up where this thing's flowing out, and it's probably dumping 30,000 CFS out of the lake behind it. So it's just, there's a picture on my Facebook or on my Instagram actually. You can see where it's just massive walls, but it kind of eddies around right next to the bank. So there's too many people, and I went downriver and I fished for a while, and it was like good swinging water. It was maybe chest deep and just flowing, but 150 yards wide, like really, really wide sections of river because it was high at the time. And I didn't catch anything. I'm like 6-7 hours into the day, and I was kind of getting bummed out. So I went back to the dam, and there's nobody there except for these two guys with spinning rods around the corner. And so I waited. I went in like 50 yards south of them and started waiting, and I swung through this channel, and like this probably 16, 18-inch steelhead just slams the streamer and tears off down the river, and I finally got him. I didn't have my net with me, too. So I got him onto like a grass mat, and then I unhooked him. I took a couple pictures while he was just still in the water, and I let it go. And that was a hatchery one, so I was kind of like, okay, I caught one, but,
So it had a clipped fin.
Yeah, so it had no adipose.
Yeah, no adipose, yeah.
So, and that one, when I was looking up, they clip all of them, so you know exactly which one's hatchery. So then I went just upriver of where the dam is dumping out, and there's a really strong eddy, but it's less than knee deep in this area. And I did like 3 swings and got slammed again, probably about another same size, but that one wasn't clipped, so I got really stoked about that one. And then I think I swung the next swing and got another one. And so I got 2 hatchery and 1 natural or sea run steelhead within that last hour.
Nice.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the whole time there's Chinook, like 20, 30, 40-pound Chinook just jumping out of the water everywhere. And they're so big that from 50, 60 yards, you can see the kipe on their jaw. Like they're just huge hunchback, kiped out like crazy.
But you can't target them. And if you hook one...
You can't target them, but the big steelhead that run up from the coast will run with them in packs. And so if you're standing on the shore and you're looking down into the eddy where it comes, about every 10 minutes, this huge school would come through. And you could see the males and the females, and then you could see what looked like steelhead mixed in with them. But you would just have to kind of get lucky.
Yeah.
And I did, for how much I hate nymphing, the way the water was flowing, I tried to nymph one, and I got one of the big females to take the hook. Now, whether she ate it, but whether it got flossed, or it was a legit bite, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was just 2 giant head shakes, and it was gone. And it had to have been a 20-plus pound fish.
Wow.
Dude, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's
so,
cool.
My steelhead story, it's very quick. My wife and I went to Washington to visit some family on vacation. I booked a trip with one of her family members to go with a guide, and we did a float on the Soul Duck River. And 50 feet downstream from the boat ramp, I hooked into a steelhead. Yeah. About 12 pounds. And then I caught sea run cutthroats the rest of the day. And every time I hooked into a sea run cutthroat, there was like a singe of disappointment that it was not a steelhead.
That river is absolutely beautiful. I just went back this February. They sent me back again, but this time I booked 3 days ahead of time, and I went and camped in my hammock right off of the Ho River.
Okay.
But the river had been rain flooded.
If I
for
remember
the entire week
correctly,
before.
they're right next to each other.
They're right next to each other. So
yeah.
So I didn't catch anything for 2 days on the Ho, and then the next day I went and I fished the sole duck and the Squalmy? No. The Calumet. There's about next to the sole duck. There's 3 rivers that are all within 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah, it's crazy,
and they're all gorgeous rivers. So I went and fished Kalawa. The Kalawa River's right there, and so I fished that one, and that was probably one of the more stunning rivers I've ever been in. I mean, thin, clear water, chest deep, high banks, and then this last time I went. I got a 13.5-foot 8-weight 2-hander, and I was practicing, and I had sink tip line, which probably not the way to learn how to swing a 2-hander because it's still a nightmare to cast. But I was consistently getting like 40-50 foot casts, and I hooked one fish. And it shook me off, and I don't know how big it was, but it was kind of 3 days of really hard fishing, and that came up with nothing. So it was kind of disappointing, but I always say January, February fishing is the biggest the biggest steelhead you can catch in the state on those rivers is that time, but it's also the hardest. So when you see pictures of guys swinging 2-handers chest deep in like blizzards, that's right there.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked our trip, and the cool thing about floating and why number one, I just love being on the river in a boat. So like my preference is to float, but like you said, the sole duck is so beautiful. We got to see so much of the river because we were floating, and so many cool things on the float. I really enjoyed it. And what we did is we would nymph from the boat, and then we would get out at really good swinging runs and pull out 2-hand rods and swing for a bit, and then we have to keep moving. So like, it was kind of a good experience. Like I was able to do something that I was really comfortable with, which is nymphing, and try to catch these fish, and then also learning something new that I was not comfortable with at all. So it was like a really good experience to float and be able to do both styles of fishing. I really enjoyed that trip. I would 100% do it again.
Yeah, so I've only been with the company for 3 years, but they've told me that actually the last 5 years they've all went to the Redmond location. So basically it means as long as I stay with them, I can look forward to like next January, February, March time. They'll send us back there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just know you're going to have that set time to go.
Yeah, if they don't send us there, the other hotel for the Archer, which is the Archer Hotel, which is part of my company, is Napa. So it would mean that I would get to go back to like the Feather River that's right there and fish that one, or any of the other waters there. And actually, I was catching steelhead, but also they have these monster pike minnow that are in the river there, and I was trying to catch one of those.
That's cool.
But I didn't have the chance. And they're I want to say what they look like. They almost look like a sucker, but with a normal straight toothy mouth, but they get yay big.
Yeah.
So
I wish the sea run cutthroat got bigger.
Yeah,
because they're
like kind of the default fish where they'll just be like, oh, the sea run are running, go to the coast, and you just swing it out there and catch a fish. And they're all 14-inch fish all day long.
That's the thing is that as I talk to multiple people, they're like, oh yeah, they're just like every fish is 14 inches. That's just like, if there was the opportunity to catch like a 26-inch sea run cutthroat, I'd be like, now we're talking. But once you catch like a handful of 14-inch sea run cutthroats, you're like, I caught my sea run cutthroat. Yeah, let's catch some steelhead.
Yeah, and that's like, right after I left that first year, like a week later was the pink salmon run.
Dude, did you just go get tacos?
What?
I just see his hand go up.
It's a delicious cookie. It's warm.
How the hell do you see a taco?
It's a warm.
Are you from?
It's a nice warm M&M cookie.
Ooh, does the Kindle make them?
It looks good.
They're so good.
Ooh, you guys should.
But yeah, hopefully next year I'll catch. I can do that hopefully next year. I'll catch a monster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice thing. You can kind of like plan a trip a year around a work trip that they're already paying for you to fly up there, and then you can kind of do your thing for a few days. And I mean,
my internal debate is next year: do I want to go for a big steelhead, or do I want to head into Idaho and go for the big bull trout up in the mountains too? Though
I vote bull trout, dude.
I would say you've caught 3 steelhead and you've caught a wild steelhead. So I would say run over to Idaho and try to catch some bull trout.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my logic. But, all right, Chris. So we were going to talk about naturalized versus invasive species. And this isn't really something that we've covered on the podcast before. So I'm just going to give you the floor and it just kind of explain naturalized versus invasives and kind of what the issues surrounding that are with.
So, I mean, and I'm not an expert on the topic at all, but so naturalized fish are essentially, they were invasives, but they've been in the ecosystem that they're in for so long that nothing's changed by them being there anymore. So like carp were brought to the U.S. in the late 1800s, and they were brought for a food source. They sort of took over everywhere and pretty much in every water. And they're obviously a trash fish or whatever you want to call it for a majority of the population, but you go to Europe and they're the number one game fish in Europe. You know, everyone wants to catch carp. So they're fun as hell to catch. It's pretty much all I target anymore around here. But you hear people call them invasive. You hear people call them invasive everywhere, but they're naturalized now. You know, they're here at this point. And then you got your active invasive fish, like lionfish in Florida on the coast, where they got brought in on tanks and released out in the ocean, and they're devastating reefs because they haven't been here long enough for the ecosystem to balance itself out. There's nothing that can really compete against them on the Florida coast. Now they're down in Australia. You've got the fish that will eat them. You got, their populations are controlled, but here they're not. And then the snakehead, which is, the almighty snakehead, which had people going crazy on the East Coast when they first discovered them in the one pond, and they were saying all kinds of stuff. But apparently now they've spread all the way to Arkansas. So I know they're in Arkansas because I go fish Arkansas all the time. And I've seen one in the Little Red River. And I even bounced the woolly bugger off its face. It didn't want anything and just went into the main current. And I know it wasn't a bowfin. I caught bowfin there on the fly. And the pattern was as visible as anything that you could see. It was a snakehead. And even the guys that had got out of the river with me were like, that's a snakehead. So they've gotten all the way, essentially, to the Mississippi and past, right? But scientists have been studying them on the East Coast ever since they got introduced, and they were terrified they were going to take over because of the way they spawn. They have the big bait balls with like thousands of little fry. Well, after all the studies, they've been finding out that the bass are like keeping the fry in check. They're going in and they're like eating almost all of them. So while they're spreading like crazy, they're not overtaking systems. So yeah, they're invasive, but they're moving so quickly and they're not devastating the systems like people thought they were. That, in 30, 40 years, they're going to be naturalized fish. The system's going to have them for so long, it's just going to be part of the system, and they'll probably make their way. If they're not already in, like, Caddo Lake or other parts of, what's the one south of Caddo that's the Sabine? The Mississippi coast? No, not Sabine's. There's the other one. But if they're not already here, they're going to be. Because, like, in Arkansas, they found a lake that was completely packed full of snakeheads, and they used the rota something that kills all gill creatures. Anything that breathes with gills dies. So when they treat something, they know basically they're going to do an entire kill off of that water body.
Yep.
And they said they couldn't get, they couldn't catch enough. And so they just said, all right, we're going to kill everything in this lake. And they wiped out the entire lake. And then, like, half a year later, there's a lake, like, a couple miles away that they found them in. And it's just like, you're not going to stop them at this point. And they apparently taste absolutely delicious. They're, like, some of the better tasting fish you can catch.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I want them to spread. I'm saying I'm just not going to be disappointed when they show up on my front door.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's kind of the carp thing I get, largemouth bass I get. Smallmouth have been we just like talk about the Texas Hill Country. Smallmouth have been a problem for Guadalupe bass. And I don't know, TPWD is doing a pretty good job like managing the Guadalupe bass and trying to remove the smallmouth bass genes that are kind of in the population. From like the research I've read and people I've talked to, they're doing a pretty good job of doing that.
I mean, if you send them out by attrition, like you dump so many pure strain fish in there, they're eventually going to breed the smallmouth out of the system.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know they've been pumping the Llano full of fish, of native fish, native strain.
Yeah.
So I've caught a bunch that I'm pretty sure were, 100% guad. But, yeah, I mean, smallmouth are just like largemouth, Largemouth, the native range of pretty much all largemouth is east of the Mississippi. There are a couple lakes, west of it, but largemouth were really nowhere across the plain states. Now, not an expert, like I said. There may have been pockets here and there, but there really wasn't. But when they started doing the stockings of Florida bass, they just dumped them in every lake possible, same as they did with rainbows and browns. Like brown trout are not native to the U.S. or North America. They're all from Europe.
Yeah.
And that's another naturalized fish at this point.
Well, I think that the topic is more interesting, like, people are okay with some naturalized fish, but not okay with other naturalized fish.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense.
In one breath, people are okay with going to Colorado and catching rainbow trout, but in another breath, they don't want any carp in any hill country river.
Yeah, and people will nail you to a tree for like picking up a largemouth bass the wrong way and lipping it and jawing it hard. And they'll shoot 10 arrows through a carp, but no one's eaten either fish. They'll nail you to a tree if you eat a largemouth also. So it really is, it's 100% pure game fish for most people, and it doesn't make any sense. Carp fight harder than largemouth.
They're more resilient than
largemouth. And anyone that catches them on a fly, not corn, they can soak a ball of corn and catch a million carp all day long. But if you're chasing them, with flies, it's harder to catch a carp than it is a largemouth. Bar none. And so if you're not eating the fish, they're both invasives. Why is one your holy grail 20-pound largemouth versus, a 40-pound common on a fly?
Well, I think it comes down to their reputation too, So like the carp, part of the reason they have that bad reputation is because they can live in complete shit water, right? Whereas a bass, not so much. So people kind of see them as a higher class fish. When in reality, I see
what you're saying, Zach, is we need to do a PR campaign for carp.
Dude, I'm down. We'll start a GoFundMe. We'll do everything we got to do.
Yeah, I mean,
actually, no. I want them to be trash fish. That way, there's more for me and Chris and Zach.
YouTube's done more to help carp actually than anything else out there.
Yeah.
If you watch the Carl and Alex guys out of Europe that have been doing it for years, there's some of the best carp videos you'll see out there production-wise.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, for some reason, in the past few weeks, I've been like and it's not a bad thing, but I've been like overloaded with people messaging me on social media asking me like tips and advice, and I've talked to Orvis San Antonio, and they're saying they're getting a huge influx of carp guys coming in. Like I think we're getting there as far as carp goes. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be the redneck stigma. They're trash fish. Shoot them, gut them, poison them, leave them on the bank. It's buy as many as you can. Here's the thing: if you want to kill them, fine, I'm okay with it. Their carp are not going anywhere. But if you're going to kill them, you're going to take them to the water, use them for something. Like, legit use them for fertilizer. Legit use them for bait. If you're going to kill them and you want to take them.
Right.
They were brought as food. Like, they are not bad to eat. If you catch a catfish in shit poison water, it's going to be shit poison fish. Same as a carp. But carp are still eaten in every other country all over the world. They taste great. I've eaten like a clear water carp, and it's tasted perfectly fine.
Dude, that's one thing that kind of gets me is people are all about catfish. Not many people call those trash fish, but a carp is a trash fish. Catfish are way more gross than a carp is, dude. I don't care what anybody says. Catfish are nasty. I
don't like eating carp. I don't like eating catfish most of the time because I can feel like I can taste the water that they were in.
Dude, does it feel gritty?
Oh, yeah.
It feels dirty. It feels like somebody rolled it around in the sandbox.
So yeah, like if it was like a catfish that was like in like good water, it's like a good tasting catfish. But if it was like in muddy, nasty water, I feel like I can taste that muddy, nasty water when I'm eating the fish.
So
there's no such thing as good tasting
Chris,
catfish.
you've eaten carp before. I've never eaten carp. What?
Yeah.
I mean, like what?
Yeah.
Mild, a fishy, like kind of like a catfish.
It's just a mild plain white meat. There's nothing. There's nothing fancy about it. There's nothing special about it, but there's nothing terrible about it. As long as it's cooked well, any fish can taste like shit cooked wrong. And it comes from clean water because any fish from dirty, nasty, muddy, whatever is going to taste shitty. So I don't mind it. Am I going to actively bring carp home? Not really. I don't keep almost any fish I ever catch. Like in the last 10 trips to the coast, I've kept 4 black drum. Like I let all my reds go.
Well, I think that's a bigger deal, and maybe where some heads need to be swayed is like instead of catching to like fill the freezer and you let all your meat go bad, like catching what you're going to eat for dinner.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, oh, I'm just like going, like I know a bunch of guys that they just go down the coast and it's like, fill the freezer, fill the freezer, fill the freezer.
Like you don't need to limit out every time you go fishing. It drives me insane that like your goal is to limit and then get off the water. It's like the conventional guides drive me insane. I'm gonna get flack for this one, but you'll see guides that'll go out with their clients and they'll limit and then bring them back, dump them at the dock, catch their next, bring out their next set of people, limit out and go back, and they'll bring like 3 sets of clients per day. And that's it. Like if I'm paying for 8 hours, I'm on the water for 8 hours. You better be fishing with me for 8 hours if I'm paying for 8 hours.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with white bass. Dudes go out. What is the bag on those? 25.
Yeah.
25.
25. Like, so there's a boat of 3 guys, and they each keep their 25. It's like, what are you going to do with 75 freaking fish, man?
Yeah.
Keep a couple if you want.
That's the fish I keep. If I go white bass fishing, I'm keeping fish.
Now there's a trillion of them, so I'm not gonna knock against it. But...
I'll never keep 25, but like if I catch like 5, 6, 7 fish, I'll keep 5, 6, 7 fish.
Yeah,
enough for me to have like 1 or 2 meals out of it.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the people, and again, I get it. It's a different arm of the sport, right? But 25 fish, that's a lot of fish, dude. That's a lot.
Now, some people will plan it around, 3-4 buddies go out, they'll limit out on all the fish, bring 100 fish, everyone cleans and have a giant fish fry. Okay.
That's
different. I feel like that's different.
if you see the same guy in the same spot every time you go there during the entire run, and they're eliminating out every single time, like
Yeah.
you've got a chest freezer full of fish that you're going to throw half it away next
yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love
Agreed.
fish, but I ain't eating it every day. I'll say that much.
See, I don't like fish that much. It's generally.
I do. Like flounder's
I'd
my
rather
favorite coastal fish.
Good.
Yeah. I'd just rather eat chicken or red meat personally. So I just don't eat a lot of fish in general. So I'm just not keeping a lot of fish either.
Yeah.
But no, I just
for the therapy of it all, really. I mean, that's my zone out. That's my time to just forget about it.
My thing is, I just wish people were more cognizant of, keeping fish and more. Well, like I don't have a problem with guys keeping fish at all. But just think through it more. We're more, cognizant about keeping fish, and then keeping in mind as well that if they are going to release a redfish that's not a slot fish because it's under slot, that they should treat that fish with care before they release it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely do what you can if you're going to release it to not.
Yep.
You want to give it its best chance, Keep it in the net. Keep it. One of the fun things about fly fishing is trying to catch a big fish on the lightest you can, But if you're also trying to take care of the fish, like I'm gonna tip it up. Like I'm going 25-pound tippet if I'm for redfish on the coast. I might go a lighter rod to make the fight fun, but I'm wrenching that fish in once it looks like it's about to go too long. I'm getting it in the boat, get it back in the water, revive it, and make sure it swims off. Without just tiring the ever living hell out of it. And then the first dolphin or shark that comes along is just gonna wreck it.
Yeah.
Hey man, they need to eat too. Hey,
Circle of life.
Circle of life.
If they're there chasing it, they've survived on their own well enough,
Yeah. Hey, so we got a good question in. Has anyone caught any smallmouth buffalo on the fly?
Oh,
yes.
I'm not.
Actually,
while you're getting that ready, I'll tell I've told on the podcast before, but quick funny story. I was fishing the Brazos River, caught some what I thought to be carp, 2 of them, posted on social media because I was like pumped. This was my first carp. This is probably like 7 or 8 years ago. Because I thought I caught my first carp, and Chris Fowler commented like, "Bro, that's not a carp. That's a smallmouth buffalo." So, yeah, I've caught 2, and I thought they were carp. I was pumped, and anyway.
Yeah, so that's my biggest one. I don't know. I want to say 20.
That's a good sized fish. Yeah.
You said you've caught 20?
No, that was probably roughly in the 20-pound range. The one that's behind on the screen.
Okay,
I sent mine, Landon. If I could put it up, I would. Smallmouth. It was a smallmouth.
Yeah. It's going to take me too long to upload to get live, but I'll just show it there.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You're not centered.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
all
one.
I see is a tail. There you go.
I think I've caught 3 or 4 total.
Yeah.
And that one was the biggest one. Most of them are probably 8 to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
How was the fight for you, Chris? Was it pretty good? Mine was lazy.
The big one that I caught, that was a crazy fight. That one ran me probably 10 minutes or so. But like I said, I'm also fishing a little heavier because I know I'm in an area with lots of trees and branches, and I don't want to break it off, have a fish trailing, 3-4 feet of tippet behind it with a hook in his mouth. So I'm trying to get him in as quickly as I could. But the other ones were probably, 5-minute fights, not terribly long. But one of them was a pair of them that were feeding at the bottom of a little waterfall, and I swung a chartreuse woolly bugger in, and it actually swung over and went for the fly.
Wow.
And my wife has the fight on video somewhere. She was behind me and she started recording. But
That's awesome.
It was like solid black. It was like this really dark black smallmouth. That was north. That was like northeast of Waco. There's a something Fort Park up there, and it was the dam release below the park that we stayed at.
Okay.
I had to force feed that damn thing. I couldn't get it. I mean, it was in the mouth. It ate the fly, right? But it was like, I probably had 20 shots at the fish before I finally got the fly in its mouth. It was, yeah. So it wasn't super like
they can feel like reels sometimes, bro. You can just sit there and watch the fish and just put a fly in its face over and over and over and over, and it'll finally go, oh, okay.
Now, are you throwing like carp flies for it, or are you throwing like midges or
Yeah.
I'll throw smaller carp flies, like my smaller hooked ones, smaller bodied ones. Generally olive or black. Keep them in that olive black and craw colors. Is kind of what I try to stick with when I'm going for them.
Now, I got a question for you, Chris. You keep saying you this is the wrong term, but overdo it on the gear to get them in fast because you're fishing heavy cover and brush. And what exactly are you talking there? Like 8 weights or?
No. Like mostly just like tippet. Because I know I'm in an area where if they run into the branches, they run into underbank, they run in roots. If I don't have something bigger, they're just going to break it off fairly quickly because I've had it happen. You know, if I'm fishing like 2X, which I'll do sometimes, especially because I'm fishing pretty much all glass now. So your rod takes so much brunt that you can fish a lot lighter and they're still not going to break it. But the problem is where I fish, that doesn't matter because once they run you under bank or they run you around trees, they're just going to snap it off. And if I'm fishing a heavier tippet, like a 0, or 16 pound or something, if they're heading for the bank, and I've even got my 4-weight glass that I fish with carp around here a lot, and if they're running straight for the bank, I can just turn them. Like you can just physically just change directions and turn that fish away from the bank, and it's not going to break you off. And mostly it's because I just don't want that fish swimming off with a fly and tippet hanging out of its mouth.
Now, if you said the number, I'm sorry I missed it. But what weight or what pound, like what size tippet are you jumping up to handle stuff like that?
Mostly 16. So like 0. Like a lot of mine is one. Most of my spools are like 1 and 0x spools, and then I'll carry some heavier stuff with me. But mostly all I fish with anymore around here is my 4 and my 6-weight glass. That's it. And I bring my 6-weight if I'm fishing where I know there's going to be a big carp, and I know I'm going to be able to tie on a decent size like a hair bug and crank that out for bass and whatnot. Because a lot of the San Gabriel is 100, 200 yards of knee-deep water and then a 10-foot pool, and you'll have to swim across the pool. But before that, I'll tie on a popper and chug it across there and see if I can get something. Then I'll cross that and then tie on a carp fly. Because inevitably what normally happens is I go out with poppers on and I end up walking into a school of carp that is spook. And I'm like, oh, okay, no. I'll toss out for bass behind this and I take 10 steps forward and I spook another carp. And then you get pissed off and you tie on a carp fly and you walk 100 yards and you don't see a fish. And you're like, are you kidding me?
Why does it always work like that? I don't understand. Every single time.
I've heard that a spooked carp releases a pheromone to warn the others.
Yeah, so that's what I've heard. Yeah. But generally, I give them about a 10-minute turnaround time. Like if I spook a pool, I can usually give them about 10 minutes and come back, and they're gonna fish. And sometimes you'll spook, and then you'll go another 20 feet, and that fish is just still sitting there feeding, and it didn't spook the other one. But the fish in the San Gabriel are like redfish. I pretty much like it's the perfect coastal practice for redfishing is catching around us. I don't know how they over by San Antonio and stuff, but around us, like they're backing, they're tailing, and if you catch them in the right mood, they'll charge it down a fly, same as a red will.
Yep, no, it's the same. I don't really fish I'll go down to the San Antonio and fish for them, but I've never done that great. But like Hill Country, Kerrville, Comfort, wherever, I've run into them tailing and belly crawling, and hell, so shallow their eyes are out of the water. You know, those are my favorite to cast too, man. Those are fun, but
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Just like redfish, better than redfish, harder than redfish. I think
We got another question. Our buddy John sent us a question.
John who?
John Stoffer.
Hey.
Hey, John.
Chris just picked up a 2-hand micro spay. Any tips for getting started practicing while in Texas?
And even spay is new to me, so I would say just get out to something. If you want to practice for where you're gonna like normally be casting spay and moving water, is find you a little stream that's just moving. I YouTubed for like a week or two every day before and just watched styles, and you can't really spay casting. The problem is you can't really practice in your yard. Like the way you need to load the line, you can't. So like I also have the creek, so I went back in the backyard and got waist deep in the creek and just practiced right there. And that's how I was able to do it. But even then, it wasn't the same once I got to like the Hoh River, which is just moving water, and so the line's moving a lot different than what you're used to. So, you know, like right now we're brushy in town, just south of the park in Brushy Creek, right in Round Rock. There's that one outlet that kicks out of the little low water crossing. And that water really speeds up. You get in that and you just start practicing your spay casting. And like I said, I'm not great at it still, but with spay casting I would not try to lawn cast or any of that. You kind of can't. It won't load the rod the way it's supposed to.
John, let's build a lazy river at your man cave.
Has any, but if you find a guide around here that knows how to, you know, maybe get some lessons. I don't know if what's his name gives
Austin Orr.
If Austin, I know he single hand spays. I know he's really good at single hand spay, but I don't know about 2-hand spay. But there are some guides in the area. What's his name? Gilly. I think he fished up in Washington a whole bunch. He's got family up there, so he knows. Maybe they, you know, be able to give you a half a day and teach you how or something. Message, you know, ask around if any of the guides know how in the area and see if you can get a little lesson on it.
Yep. Isn't there a guy that works up at what's that fly shop in Austin?
Living Waters?
Sportsman's Finest.
Oh, Sportsman's Finest?
I think they have a guy there that's like a big spay caster.
They might. They had someone there for like 2 years ago that I met that had moved from out of state and had done like bigger water spay casting and stuff. But that's kind of a jaunt for me now. It used to be closer to where I lived, but now I live up in Liberty Hill, so I'm kind of away from town. Round Rock and Living Waters is kind of close to me, but Bass Pro's there, but Bass Pro really doesn't have anything. So
Speaking of Bass Pro, real quick. So Zach, Lou bought some of those MFC beads, and she had the same problem.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, they suck.
So MFC, get your shit
dude,
together.
Dude, it's crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Beads.
Chris,
if you didn't know, the beads are inconsistent, so some of them don't even fit on hooks.
Like
some of them have a big hole, some of them have a small hole.
Across one package, they'll all have completely different size different size holes.
Excuse me, guys. Anyway. I'm sorry. One last question, and then we'll call it for the day, fellas. Any tips on catching Rios in crystal clear water? I've thrown several colors of Rio getters, no luck. Maybe wait till after spawn.
Definitely wait till after spawn.
And if you want to catch them during spawn, and for me, it's just been stand there for another 2 hours and keep casting.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll piss them off. You're not gonna get a hook that's them trying to eat it. You're gonna get them to bite it because you pissed them off. Because they're cichlids, and cichlids get angry. They pick up and spit rocks. That's why they're hard to keep in tanks, because they'll break the glass. They'll see the reflection, and they'll pick up rocks and spit it at the glass, and they'll crack tanks.
I did not know that. No.
I didn't even know that.
So basically, you're gonna get them to pick up your fly, and hopefully the hook's oriented correct when you set the hook that you're gonna catch them.
I've actually, this was on Brushy Creek. I caught a cichlid, and it was during spawn. And what it was doing was I would cast at it. It would pick my fly up and move it away and put it down, but it wasn't eating the hook.
Happen.
That's why.
And I did that over. Eventually, they'll just get the hook in their mouth, and you can hook up with them.
Well, that's why cichlid flies, like the Rio Getter, for example, or the Rio Bandito too. They're tied with a really short tail. That way, the fish doesn't have a choice but to grab the hook. I mean, they'll still grab the tail, but it's a lot harder for them to get just the tail.
Same thing.
And short rubber legs, very short rubber legs.
That's definitely been my experience.
Yeah.
And I won't rip set the hook, because a lot of times you're getting so frustrated and you've been casting the same fish for 20 minutes or so, you'll want to rip it like hard. Normally, when they start to pick it up is when I'll just really, really gently just put tension on them. And most of the time, you'll either just pull it right out of their mouth gently and they won't almost even notice it, or it'll head shake and hook itself, and then you can just start biting it.
Yeah. For sure. All right. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody who tuned in to watch us live. If you guys didn't know, we are live streaming this podcast now every Tuesday. We start between 7 and 7:30. And so if you want to catch us live, tune in on Tuesdays at 7. Otherwise, you can catch us, when the podcast releases on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all of the other sources. And then the video version will also be released to YouTube as well. So however you want to watch us and check us out, we're there. Chris, huge thanks.
Oh, thank you.
We finally made it happen.
We had to go virtual, and it happened.
It's been a long time coming. So,
we'll do it again.
For sure.
yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, and the Zacks, thank y'all. I'll be moving soon. It's coming in close, but we'll keep the podcast rolling. And until next time, fellas.
A nicer backdrop at the new place. Got it?
Yeah,
Not
now
this
that my
empty
material,
pegboard nonsense.
I know my pegboard's empty now, and this is the trash room right now, so you guys can see all the garbage on the floor, because everybody's throwing stuff into this room, because this is the garbage room for now. So the catch-all, yeah. So, all right, guys.
All right,
yeah.
Look in the description below to find links to our website, online store, YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Discord server, and blog. Please send your podcast questions and inquiries to info@honeyholeangling.com. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you again next week.